And welcome once again to the Right Network studio. And I am joined with one of my favourite people, is Dawn Brolin.
I'm in North, love you so much, you know that. I'm getting better at my accent.
No, you're not.
Okay.
You're really not.
I know, it's like I had a seizure. I know, you've told me that before. But I'm very honored to have the opportunity to have some one-on-one time with you.
Fantastic. So Dawn, we've been talking a lot about how accountants and bookkeepers and advisors can move towards advisory type work. Now, what I'd like to hear from you is your work in terms of fraud and how that kind of plays into the shift from the compliance-based firm towards more advisory. So tell us more about the Dawn Brolin's Team Brolin. Powerful accounting.
Powerful accounting. There's a lot to say, and we don't have that kind of time, but I will point out the important parts, which one is we've launched Fight Against Fraud, and our whole goal is to help small businesses, first of all, understand that there is a lot of occupational fraud out there, and we as the trusted advisor need to become a bigger role in that advisory service. And it's not, oh, let's sit down and compare your numbers because the computers are going to do that part, but rather, okay, but we need to take a look at your business and where are there maybe some risks associated with your systems and your processes and what's happening. So I'm educating the accounting world to help them educate the small business owners and help them get on that track.
Yeah, because I should add, Dawn has a regular column on Accounting Web,
That's right.
The Fraud Fighters, which we've got some great plans for later.
Yes, we do.
Year. So, talking about occupational fraud, though, I mean, what do you see? What is the most common issue that arises?
Yeah, well, there's obviously many. The Association of Certified Fraud Examiners publishes a report to the nations every year around occupational fraud, and they discuss businesses over 100 employees and businesses under 100 employees. And unfortunately, because the bigger businesses have the internal controls, they have a whole team to implement internal controls. A small business with 10, 15, even 3 employees, number one, they don't even know what internal controls are. They don't know why they're important until someone steals from them. And it's that, it's always after the fact. It's not a proactive approach, which is where the advisors can shift their focus of what applications are doing in small business, not just efficiency, which we love, and the information we're going to get in a quicker manner, but how you implement your systems and processes in your business in order, number one, for the information to be accurate, but to minimize the risk of embezzlement. People are going to pay less attention to that computer than ever before. So we've got to be implementing some internal controls with the applications. And I think sometimes we get really hung up on efficiencies.
Right, as opposed to looking at the security side.
Correct.
But I mean, I guess if you've got a business with 5 staff, it's a very different kind of relationship that these individuals have. And how does that play out? I mean, if someone they've worked together for 10 years, they're friends, that must arise. That
always. Often.
Often.
I've even seen sons steal from fathers, which is disgusting,
Painful.
right? Brothers, sisters, anything like that. They don't believe you until it happens. So what I used to say, I want to try to prepare you, not scare you. Now I'm out there just scaring the crap out of everybody, ultimately. Because they're just, it won't be me. There's only 3 of us, and Betty's been with me forever. I trust Betty.
Do they not believe you when you discover something is amiss?
Oh, yes. And really you have to take a very careful approach as an advisor if you see some kind of funky activity, because obviously see something, say something, but make sure you have the evidence, the proof, because you can tank yourself very easily by making false accusations.
Yeah.
So you've got to do your due diligence. You have to know what to look for. And occupational fraud right now, there's still check tampering, altering invoices, ghost employees, embezzling payroll taxes. This stuff, it's unreal with the technology we have that stuff is still happening, but it is.
So what kind of tech? I know you work with a lot of the ecosystem around QBO. What are the core elements of that?
Yeah, so definitely having a workflow management contact system that has ability to restrict access and changes and deletions and those kind of things. Technologies that have a workflow where more than one person has to touch it in order for a transaction to occur.
Right.
So if you imagine, like Receipt Bank is a really great one. So because a lot of people have employees with credit cards.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times they don't hand in the receipts, and we don't know if they bought, if they went to the zoo, because who doesn't want to go to the zoo?
Oh, yeah.
So who knows? So with the Receipt Bank piece and the sync into QBO, you can match up, are there receipts? Am I only getting 10% of the receipts? Am I getting 70% of the receipts? Why is this guy only given 10? This one's given 80%. So you're able to start making analytical decisions utilizing technology like Receipt Bank, like using those interface together. Smart Vault, so you're making sure you have, for me, it's just security on documents that are important.
Yeah.
And, of course, tax, there's various procedures for tax. And so that's really, we try to educate the practitioner because they're just as exposed and have risks associated with their business. We're huge targets.
Of course.
Yeah. We as the practitioners are big targets on our backs because we have the information those criminals want.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect, the fraud on internet and those kind of things. And then, of course, you have the occupancy fraud. And the tax fraud is another interesting piece.
So taking outside of technology, it seems to me that working with your clients around spotting fraud and offering that as a service is a great springboard. It must give you that kind of insight. How do you see that working with?
Yeah, so, it's really interesting as accounting professionals and as that trusted advisor, understanding that there's the occupancy fraud and you want to have the internal controls. But we also deal a lot in tax fraud. Now, when it comes to tax fraud, people think of, all those stories of the people who, didn't pay their taxes and they owe billions of dollars. Those are rarities, those don't happen. But the people who claim things on their tax return on a regular basis that are not for business, I don't care if it's $5 or $5 million, it's tax fraud. So having the information in order to make an educated decision on whether it is a business expense or it's not, that's important. So as a trusted advisor, for a great example, the mileage deduction, which happens to be just something that everyone likes to make up, which is really weird. That's tax fraud, okay? So, when the client comes to you, and as the professionals, the preparers, they come rolling in, rolling with Brolin. Come on, that was well played. And so they come in, and you've got their documents, and everything's all cool, and then you're like, okay, where's your mileage log? What did you do for miles last year? Well, Brolin, we do actual. Oh, so the 100% thing? Yeah, nobody does 100% unless you're driving a dump truck, okay? And I'm certainly not going to pick my kid up at school in a dump truck, okay? There's no real parking space at Stop and Shop or any of those places, So they like to say their answer to me is, I drove a little more than last year. Oh, well, interesting. So either way, there's a tax evasion because we're not giving the facts.
Yeah.
But there's also the option and the possibility that they're underreporting their expenses because maybe they traveled a lot more than whatever a little more was.
Yeah.
So, as that trusted advisor and with the fraud that happens, I want my employees to be watching out for my clients to say, hey, we don't have receipts for you. I'm not comfortable for you preparing the return, not about me, because I go off your documents. But when you don't do the things that are in the Internal Revenue Manual that say if you want to be in business, you have to keep timely books and records. So how many people keep timely books and records, and how many people reconstruct books and records? And that's a really important point that people just don't see. I don't know why.
I guess it's just a lack of attention to detail.
Yeah.
So, but it must change the relationship that you have with your client when you're working in that way.
Right.
So,
well, if I'm sitting at the desk across from you're my tax client, I say, hey, Andy, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, and I got my badge on, my holster, bulletproof vest, all of that.
You're fully geared up.
It's intimidating. And so, as I've gotten more involved in fraud, both tax and occupancy fraud, they take you a little seriously. So I think the advisory role has to kind of stand up and be a little more forceful, a little more proactive with even just start with your existing clients to say, listen, okay, today's a new day and here's how we're going to roll. We're going to roll with implementation of some applications to prevent the risk that you will commit a tax fraud. Or 5 years from now when you get audited and you don't have the documents, now you've got an even bigger problem.
Yeah.
We need to be angry about it, forceful, because we're fighting for those small business owners who have sacrificed everything. And if we as trusted advisors we just advise you on things, what is advisory? Aren't you protecting them from themselves?
Yeah.
Like that's part of the game. So I think there needs to be a step up, powerful move and punch the crap out of fraud. That's essentially
you
what
enjoy this, right? It's changed the way you operate and
Yes.
and yeah. Well, describe that feeling of being in that kind of relationship.
So I've become even more paranoid than I ever was before preparing tax returns, only in that, like, I know how important, I see what happens to people who don't do what I'm telling them to do. They're not necessarily my clients yet, right?
Yeah.
So I'm getting clients that are coming to me where numbers are clearly made up because they're all even. All right, first mistake, put a couple twos here, a 7 there. Like, really? Like, if you're going to be a fraud, be a good one.
It's basically false working.
Yeah.
Make it look like you messed that up a little bit.
Yeah, you got it, whatever. So that's a tip. But that's not an extra charge. I'm not charging extra for that. But it's just, I approach things in a very different way than I did before I realized how important it was to pay attention to people who steal. You steal $20 from a business owner, you should be taken out back and beaten, because that $20 was a sacrifice that business owner made at one time or another. Don't tell me because they're off in Paris or they're off in Italy on vacation with their family and you're back here working. See, you weren't here the hours where that business owner was working until 2 or 3 in the morning, working to build this business, sacrificing those kids. Now, finally, when they're 25, I'm going to take them and get to know them. And the $20 bill, I don't care what it is, you just stole from his investment and his sacrifice. And there's a lot of things wrong with that.
The passion is quite clear.
Yeah, I want to take this right now and throw it against the wall. I'm so upset.
So, what's your message? There's thousands of bookkeepers, there's thousands of accountants out there. How do they get involved with this? What should they do if they see this as a really important thing as you do?
Yeah, and it's really it's something that we need to get more people to pay attention to, and I think it just starts with kind of sitting down with a cup of coffee, with nothing else around, and say, listen, what am I really doing? What value am I providing my client by going in and doing whatever it is I have been doing? What if I made a decision to say, you know what, I'm going to call up John. John, listen, and I'm not saying this is how to approach it, but John, you know what, your business is really important to me, and I know it's important to you and Mary and Jack, and I wanted to have a kid named Jack. I got 2 girls, man. I'm still mad at my husband. That's a different thing. But I want to say to them and help them understand that this isn't just about you paying me for services. That's not what this is about, and what it shouldn't be about. It's about you and your investment and what's happened. And as the advisor, you've got to take that to a more, like, all bold red caps, font 700, font size 767. It's a good number.
Big number.
Round, not an even number.
I like it.
So, I think we just have to stop talking about being advisors and do it. And do it. Be an advisor. Go in there and say, listen, I want to help you. You need help in many ways, but this one thing that I can help you with is your company and how we can grow it so that when your daughter, because by the time she goes to college, it's going to be $600,000. And by the time she gets married, that's $1 million. Because if you think they want it in the backyard or at a local club, you're out of your mind. So we got to get something. We got to wrap our heads around this, and we got to run together and make this happen. I just think we got to get more serious about it, more passionate about it.
It's passion is the one word that always springs to mind when I speak to you, Don. Always. And of course,
and around many areas of life, but yes.
So, For everyone, follow Dawn, please. A regular column on Accounting Web. It should be regular, shouldn't it, Dawn?
Yeah, sure. Well, tax season just,
yeah.
and when you're trying to win a national championship, that takes a little bit of time away from you. So, that's over.
Dawn is regularly on Accounting Web, so please check out, follow her blog. It's got some awesome stuff in it. Dawn, absolute pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for your time.
It's been great. And you've been with us, Andy North at Accounting Web and Dawn Brolin from Powerful Accounting in the Right Network studio.